Hello and welcome to CTV News across Canada for Friday, January 9th. We've got the top local stories from coast to coast and stories that affect you and the country. Thanks for joining us.
For over a year now, the Chalmers Hospital Emergency Department has been so full that a makeshift treatment unit is handling the overflow. But the unit, 13 beds, was created in the former ambulance bay, essentially a garage. In an open letter to Premier Susan Holt posted on social media, Katarina Leckborg describes her 88-year-old grandmother's experience being treated in that unit. There is no bathroom, no running water, no sink to wash hands. She eats inches from the commode she must use to relieve herself. There is no privacy, a tattered curtain with holes, no doors. The lights are relentless, on all day and all night. She writes that the unit is not a solution, but concealment. The Premier and Health Minister agree.
When you look at that care in a garage, it's not ideal.
But they both say right now it's the only option.
The alternative is no care right now. If that MASH unit hadn't been transitioned by Horizon, then people would be outside in the parking lot. It's pretty hard to say that it's better than nothing because it is terrible.
Holt says she's been discussing the situation with Leckborg through texts and phone calls. Horizon Health CEO says the very existence of this unit reflects the severe strain the system is under. Today, 121 patients at the Chalmers are waiting for a long-term care placement. The Minister of Health says he's working on that.
We have people that are under the care of the public trustee. We're asking the public trustee to help us get people from a hospital ALC status to a nursing home.
Leckborg ended her letter stating, "Healthcare is governed by a fundamental duty, do no harm. What is happening now is harm. This is not care. It is systemic failure." CTV has reached out to Leckborg but is yet to hear back. Laura Brown, CTV News, Fredericton.
We're hoping to provide some stability to this neighborhood.
The Cross-Cultural Learners Centre has spent 5 years planning this 24-story residential building for newcomers to Canada in the Old East Village. More than 30% of the units will be affordable housing. 22% will be fully accessible, but the project suddenly faces financial uncertainty because of a dispute with city staff about a policy that waives development charges on affordable housing.
City staff has recommended that only a portion of the units in the project should be approved for abatement of the development fees.
What would that mean for this project?
About a $3 million hole.
According to a staff report, quote, "A technical reading of the Development Charges Act requires that the full exemption be applied only to nonprofit corporations whose primary objective is to provide housing. City staff argue the CCLC's primary objective is not housing. So based on the city's calculations, 75 affordable units would have DCs waived, but 138 market rent units would still require a $3.1 million payment.
I think it's super important, right, to have that building there, to have all those feet on the street.
Councillor Susan Stevenson suggests the situation results from city staff having to take a technical approach to development policies.
But it is within committee and council's purview to, notwithstanding that policy, to grant the full DC exemption.
And this dispute over development charges with City Hall comes as the project faces significant deadlines that must be met to ensure it breaks ground on schedule. Lang says negotiations are currently underway with the Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation about providing a loan to cover the vast majority of costs.
This might affect our negotiation with them. We've been dealing with them for several years, and the challenge is we might have to go back to ground zero.
CCLC will appeal the development charge decision at City Hall next week, seeking a full waiver. In the event the appeal is unsuccessful, Councillor Stevenson will look to her council colleagues.
I will have an alternate motion ready that grants the full DC exemption as was planned.
Daryl Newcombe, CTV News.
With lines drawn, the land has now been transferred. After the province passed Bill 76, the Barrie-Oromadante Springwater Boundary Adjustment Act of 2025, after months of deliberation and controversy, the city took ownership January 1st. The boundary adjustment will see Barrie grow by nearly 4,100 acres into Springwater in Oromadante, paving the way for 8,000 new homes and jobs for 23,000 people. The expansion impacts 2.3% of Springwater's land and 0.8% of Oro-Medonte land. Wards 1, 3, and 4 saw significant expansion. City staff say the work is being done for a seamless transition.
We hope that the public doesn't even notice a change in their level of service. We're phasing in the winter maintenance for a number of the roads over the next couple of months.
The city will now be responsible for Ferndale Drive North and Sunnydale Road, 5-6 Side Road, and Partridge Road. And while the mass of land is large, a small number of residents will be immediately affected.
It is a large area, but it is rural in nature with large properties, so we understand there's less than 200 people who are actually impacted in joining the city now.
Those affected will now have access to city services including fire, police, and bylaw, a waterfront parking pass, recreation programs and facilities, and the landfill. A 5-year phase-in for city taxes will be initiated starting this year.
We want to help residents if they do notice a change, or we want to help them understand what new services might be available to them now that they are part of the city.
For those with additional questions, the city will be holding an open house on January 15th from 3 to 7 p.m. Luke Simard, CTV News, Barrie.
For 27 years, Dawn Barton has worked as a hairstylist, but when the COVID-19 pandemic hit, she says she was forced to stop working because of restrictions. So like thousands of others, she applied for CERB, the Canada Emergency Response Benefit.
When I applied for EIs, it redirected me instantly to the CERB program. So I just assumed that that was where I was supposed to be.
She also applied for the Canada Recovery Benefit and the Canada Recovery Sickness Benefit. In total, she received $17,000 during the shutdowns. Now she's been asked to pay it all back.
I needed this income. I had a family to feed.
According to the Canada Revenue Agency, she wasn't eligible for CERB because she earned more than $1,000 of income during the applicable payment period, which she denies. As for the other two benefits, the CRA says she did not have a 50% reduction in her average weekly income compared to the previous year.
Hairstylists don't, a lot of us don't get paid by the hour. We get paid by commission, so our pays fluctuate. So it's really something that I feel like the CRA should take into consideration.
And she's not alone. The CRA says it's owed more than $10 billion in relief benefits from Canadians who didn't qualify.
It's a very common thing, and obviously a lot of people got CERB, and the rules were not entirely clear when it was granted, and some people are now being asked to pay it back because the government has decided that they didn't qualify.
As for Barton, she says she's appealed the decision and been denied twice, but doesn't understand why. She says CRA has already begun clawing back money, withholding tax refunds and other benefits until the full amount is paid.
I've had to visit food banks. I've had to ask for loans. And this amount of money, which is roughly about $7,000 they've taken from me this year alone, could have really helped keep my head above water.
In a statement, CRA says it remains sensitive to the hardship Canadians may be facing as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. The agency says flexible payment arrangements are available and that applicants who disagree with a second review can apply to the federal court for a judicial review within 30 days of the decision.
Montezir Hirhi's family still has the photos that show broken glass in the center console of his car.
No, he did not deserve to die.
The photos part of the evidence they're using as they hope to challenge the decision by the SIU not to lay charges in his death in 2022. Surveillance video shows him apparently urinating in a snowbank. A York Regional Police officer drives up, and within moments, Hirhi flees. His car reverses up the snowbank, the officer hanging out, and then 3 shots are fired. Officers found a gun in a satchel on him.
I'm not saying my stepson was an angel. However, to urinate in a snowbank and to be murdered as a result, justice must be done.
Their case took on a new dimension when CTV News learned it was Hirhi's case a senior manager at the SIU was referring to when he allegedly said the victim was a black drug dealer who had it coming, as well as other remarks about staff of color, including monkey knows better. The comments at the heart of a dispute at the Ontario Labour Relations Board where the SIU has denied they were said. The board's vice chair was expecting to hear new testimony from another SIU manager. That manager didn't show up, apparently because she was sick, prompting the vice chair to criticize both the complainant and the agency for delay. Employment lawyer Muniza Sheikh said the SIU needs to properly investigate to build confidence among its own workers and the public.
This is an organization that A, is responsible for incredibly important work, B, deals with people who are incredibly vulnerable.
The stakes are high for the agency's credibility, says activist Dave Bosveld.
It puts in question any investigation that, that individual or folks that think similarly were involved in.
As for the claimer here, he was a dealer. His stepmom says he did his time in 2018 for a drug-related offense.
He was going straight. Moses registered for school, and he had hopes and dreams of making us proud of him.
His bullet-ridden car was a write-off. Dolores Langer doesn't want her stepson's case to be written off, too. John Woodward, CTV News.
Starting January 26, it's the end of working from home for government employees. They're being forced to come back to the office 3 days a week, and many workers feel it doesn't make sense. Christiane Daigle is the president of the SPFQ.
There's no plus value, there's no gain for the employer.
The union surveyed 7,000 workers and found 87% expect higher stress and fatigue, 82% say their work-life balance will worsen, and 63% predict lower individual productivity. Quebec is not the only province calling their employees back. Ontario enforced a full return to the office on Monday, and Alberta plans to follow next month. The province's Minister of Efficiency, France-Hélène Duranceau, says it's necessary to improve productivity, but the union disagrees, saying while returning to the office is useful for new employees, workers are spread throughout the province, meaning many will still rely on online meetings.
So even though they're at the workplace at the same time, they will have to do teams to communicate with each other, because one is in Rimouski, the other one is Quebec, and the other one is in Valleyfield.
A recruitment agency in Montreal says workers are likely to accept lower-paying jobs just to have the option to work from home full-time. Michaela Landers is the recruiting director at Proforce Personnel.
Take a $80,000 salary, they're willing to take 70 to 75 if it means they get to work from home.
And according to the survey, 7 out of 10 workers say they are less likely to stay in their current job if they have to go back to the office. The union believes this may be part of the government's strategy to meet its target of cutting 5,000 jobs by next year. We reached out to Minister Duranceau's office, but they declined to comment. The union has filed a grievance against the province, claiming a lack of consultations. Meanwhile, workers are bracing themselves to head back to their cubicles, whether they like it or not. Sweeta Rassi, CTV News.
A black and white checkered grocery bag on the road shows where the woman was hit by the truck. It happened around 9 a.m. at the intersection of Islington and Dixon Road. According to police, the 35-year-old victim was in the crosswalk when she was struck by this truck, making a right-hand turn onto Dixon Road.
Officers attended the scene and rendered medical assistance. Sadly, the female was pronounced deceased at the scene.
Police say the 26-year-old driver of the truck remained on the scene and he is cooperating with the investigation. Traffic Services was gathering evidence at the scene and inspecting the truck. This is a busy intersection and police are seeking assistance from the public.
I'm asking anyone who may have been in the area at around 9:02 this morning at Islington and Dixon Road and may have seen anything to please contact police.
The name of the woman who died has not been released. The intersection was closed in all directions for more than 3 hours during the investigation. John Musselman, CTV News.
2026 isn't starting off well for Kashechewan First Nation. Several infrastructure issues have led the leadership to declare a state of emergency.
People are
just tired of not having access to clean water and having the inability to have health care.
On Sunday, the water treatment system failed, causing sewage to back up into homes and contaminate the water supply. That also caused flooding at the community's nursing station. The infrastructure is more than 30 years old and in need of upgrades. It's something they've been trying to address with the federal government.
It's an ongoing issue with these deficiencies. The government keep putting band-aid solutions on this water plant. Like I said, we want permanent solutions.
About 100 vulnerable residents have already been evacuated from the First Nation and flown to Timmins and Kapuskasing. But due to the urgent public safety concerns, leadership has requested a full evacuation of all 2,200 residents.
We don't have any potable drinking water. We're having issues bringing in water to the community because of weather conditions and where our planes are flying from. So we have a whole list of issues, and it kind of necessitated the need for our community to evacuate.
And keep encouraging people to be strong out there. Be safe when they're evacuated.
Indigenous Services Canada says it's working closely with the community. It distributed some bottled water and sent specialized technicians to help repair the equipment. A spokesperson for Indigenous Services Canada says this is an evolving situation and we will continue to respond to all critical needs to support community members and leadership through this evacuation and to get people back home as soon as possible. It's unknown when the community will have a working water system again, and more evacuation flights are being planned in the coming days. Angela Gemmell, CTV News, Sudbury.
Ontario's decision to remove Crown Royal from LCBO shelves is making waves well beyond Queen's Park.
They know it's going down to Alabama. So whatever we're producing here in Ontario, they're going to make up the difference in Manitoba or Quebec. So I got to protect Ontario.
Premier Doug Ford's decision to clear the shelves comes after Diageo announced it would shut down Amherstburg's bottling plant, putting about 200 workers out of a job and moving operations stateside. The whiskey itself is made in Gimli, Manitoba, where 76 workers now worry about their future.
Decisions like this by Premier Ford I would say it's jeopardizing livelihoods in the Interlake.
In Amherstburg, the union has a different view.
We can't have Canadians get kicked in the head time and time again and just sit on our hand.
John Dagnolo, president of Local 200, says his frustration is directed at the company, not workers in Manitoba, and warns it could happen there too.
I think the Premier's right in what he's doing, because the big picture is not just talking about Diageo here. We're talking about all kinds of industries.
The United Food and Commercial Workers Union, which represents workers at the Manitoba distillery, warns the move could have broader consequences, saying in a statement they stand in solidarity with Amherstburg. However, Doug Ford's plan to pull Crown Royal from the shelves only attacks more Canadian workers during a time when we need to stand together as a country.
Ford's intentions are not only dangerous for the province, but it's also quite dangerous for the rest of Canada as well.
Food professor Sylvain Charlebois says sanctioning a product through government channels could create unintended consequences, including more trade disruptions and potentially hurt both workers and consumers in the long run.
What is unfolding right now is a path towards more closures from other companies eventually. So, I mean, or you're basically reducing any chances of seeing Diageo or other companies investing in Ontario and the rest of Canada.
Amherstburg Deputy Mayor Chris Gibbs says he remains hopeful a new company will soon move in.
I will leave the interprovincial relations to the proper office with the Premier, but from my perspective here in Amherstburg is we are willing, able and ready to do what it takes to bring that plant back to life.
As the debate continues, workers on both sides say they're caught in the middle of something that could reshape the future of Canadian spirits productions. CTV News reached out to Diageo and Manitoba Premier Wab Kinu's office for comment and are waiting to hear back. For now, unions on both sides say their focus remains on protecting Canadian jobs, even if they disagree on how to do it.
This gray SUV with City of Selkirk markings is creating some confusion amongst residents in the community.
I've never seen the car in Selkirk, but my first thought was,
if they had attempted to stop me, I probably wouldn't stop. I would be concerned about impersonation of a police officer.
What looks like an unmarked vehicle parked around the city is actually a community safety officer on the job. The city of Selkirk brought in the officer last May to help out RCMP and go on community patrols. Resident Doreen Lansky says she didn't know anything about the position until she came across a social media post on Wednesday this week.
I really am embarrassed to admit that I wasn't aware of it.
Dwayne Nickel, Chief Administrative Officer with the City of Selkirk, says they brought in the CSO position to complement existing Selkirk RCMP detachment members. The process took more than 2 years.
Under the Police Services Act, CSO is a peace officer, and they're able to enforce sections of many pieces of provincial legislation, including the Highway Traffic Control Act.
The province brought in the CSO program a decade ago, and several jurisdictions, including East St. Paul and Portage la Prairie, have them. Nichols says residents will have another officer watching their speed and keeping eyes out for crime in the city.
This is yet another tool that we could add to our toolbox to keep and maintain safety and security in our communities.
Doreen Lansky says the CSO may not be on her radar because she follows the law, maybe too well.
I have never seen the vehicle, but then I'm not speeding. I'm one of the people that people are annoyed with because I go too slow.
Joseph Bernacki, CTV News, Selkirk.
One hen waited 3 full days inside the Peter Lougheed Center emergency section.
I was counting ceiling tiles. I brought a sociology textbook. I finished it in the first 24 hours, and then after that I was just listen to music, I guess.
A boring stay for needed help, but Hen says he's lucky. He actually had a chair to sit and wait in.
It just seemed like they didn't have places to put people, and then all of the upstairs units were full, and that just caused massive backloads downstairs.
Across the streets, Avo Wahlberg is still waiting for his 90-year-old mother who broke her hip.
She's been in the hospital now for 3 days, but it's an emergency in the sense that the physicians feel it should be done within 24 hours.
Doctors tell us it's past time for the province to step in.
Our entire province's healthcare system is in crisis. We need to declare a state of emergency.
Doing so would allow for temporary measures that may improve the system. It could mean emergency funding or load leveling, which would move patients out of busy centers and into facilities that can handle them.
Often, frequently, we have people in 10 out of 10 abdominal pain with no pain medications, no comfort, nowhere to sit comfortably for 12 hours in our emergency department because we can't get them in.
In the last 24 hours, we've seen the queue at Rocky View exceed 5 hours, and the one at the South Health Campus reach 8 hours and 20 minutes. At one point, the wait at Peter Lougheed was 10.5 hours. Even those staffing Calgary's fastest emergency department say they're underwater.
So right now, today, we're 130% over capacity. We've started doubling up rooms on most of the different floors of the units to handle the increased patient load.
Alberta's minister in charge of hospitals and surgical health services denied a CTV News interview request. A statement says the province will continue to monitor system pressures closely and work with health system partners to respond to challenges as they arise. It adds recent investments in acute and continuing spaces should alleviate some concerns soon, but the government will not commit to declaring that state of emergency. It's not what many doctors want to hear.
I would just respond, how many more patients have to die in our waiting room before they'll step up and show some leadership?
Tim is outside Foothills Hospital tonight. So, Tim, what are the professionals blaming these issues on?
Well, it depends who you ask, Tara. If you ask the province, they'll say a large portion of these problems can be chalked up to an especially bad flu season. And, well, as we all know, that's at least partially true. Influenza has been tough on hospitals this year. We've seen admissions total around 2,200 for the flu this year, which is, or 2,200 more rather this year for the flu than there was last year at this time. So, of course, that is a major problem. But if you ask doctors, there's also other major problems. They point to rapid population growth and what they call chronic underfunding of the system. And they also say clogs in the continuing care system are not helping, Tara, because, well, they're just taking up valuable hospital space.